The next morning Takumi heads to the library to see if he can find any information about alchemy, but it turns out that the entire library only has 4 books on alchemy. Takumi is confused and wonders why alchemy isn't more popular when it's so simple to understand. But it isn't easy. All the alchemy texts available are written in this world's ancient language, so the only reason Takumi can understand any of what's written here is because Norn gave him a blessing that allows him to understand every language in this world. Later that day Takumi, Maria, and Sophia finish making a bunch of toilets, and while there is still a lot more to go they're making good progress, so Takumi thinks he should be able to take a break for toilet making for a while. If Takumi won't be making any more toilets for now, Maria asks what he intends to do, and Takumi answers that he plans to go on some journeys soon. Specifically, Takumi wants to try finding new alchemy ingredients, and while he is at it, Takumi wants to see the unique sights this world has to offer and maybe explore some ruins along the way. Takumi already plans to take Sophia as his bodyguard, so he must ask Maria to stay behind and care for the house while Takumi is gone. However, Maria doesn't like the sound of that. Maria asks Takumi if she can accompany him on his journey, but he doesn't think that'd be a good idea since the journey is dangerous. Also, Takumi mainly hired Maria because he needed a maid to take care of the mansion, so it would defeat the purpose if Takumi took her with him. Maria understands Takumi's point, but being left alone in the mansion would make her feel lonely, so she pleads with Takumi to reconsider. Takumi would feel bad about leaving Maria all alone, but before he makes any decisions, there is something Takumi needs to check, so he grabs Maria's face and uses appraisal to check her stats. Unexpectedly, Maria's stats are good, but Maria is not overpowered, but she can handle herself in a fight, so Takumi agrees to bring her along for the journey as long as Maria is sure she can handle it. Sophia says she is willing to teach Maria how to use magic and fight to ensure she is ready for any possible threats, and Takumi likes the sound of that, so he asks Sophia to train him and Maria. Since they decided that Maria would join the expedition, Takumi thinks it's time he starts making equipment for everyone. Takumi asks Sophia what kind of weapon she would like. Sophia doesn't hesitate and begins listing off an entire arsenal of weapons she would like, but that's to be expected since Sophia is an experienced warrior. Maria on the other hand doesn't know much about weapons, but she did receive a little short sword training from Mulan, so Maria tells Takumi that a set of battle knives will be fine for her. However, Sophia points out that having only battle knives will put Maria at a disadvantage when it comes to reach, so she should probably get a spear as well. Maria doesn't know how to use a spear, so Sophia offers to give her a quick training to show her the basics, and while they do that, Takumi begins working on the weapons. It doesn't take him long to finish crafting all the blades, but it drains a ton of his mana, so Takumi has to drink a mana potion to recover before he can continue. The final step for the blades is for Takumi to cast an attack and auto-repair enchantment on them, so he doesn't have to perform maintenance as often, and once that's done, the blades are finally complete. Now Takumi will move on to the handles, but since Maria requested battle knives she will need a sheath for them. Even though Takumi is a gentleman, he is still a man of culture, so imagining Maria's thick thighs with knives on them nearly makes him pass out. The next thing Takumi needs to make is the armor for the girls, but rather than simply asking them to let him measure their sizes, Takumi has a much better idea. Takumi opens up his item box and pulls out 2 life-size dolls, Maria and Sophia, which he has already made with his appraisal skill, but don't ask why Takumi made them. As for the armor itself, Takumi plans to make it using maple silk and some of the hide he got from the armored boar. When it comes to the design, Takumi never had the chance to make armor for others before, so he decides to let his mind run wild and try out all his outfit fantasies with those dolls. After several days and several redesigns, Takumi finally gives the armor to Maria and Sophia, which looks great on them. Takumi asks the two if they like it, and both are honestly surprised by how well it fits, although Takumi never asked for their measurements. It's almost as if Takumi had duplicates of them on which he could test the outfits, but that would be crazy. Takumi changes the subject before they start getting suspicious and asks them what they think of the weapons he made for them. Sophia pulls out the sword Takumi made for her and says it feels perfect. The same goes for Maria as she tests out her battle knives, and Maria is grateful for the equipment he made for her. Takumi made one more thing for them, so he pulled out some rings and told them it should help with their magic casting. Sophia and Maria accept the rings but feel bad about troubling Takumi since rings like these are bound to consume a ton of mana. Takumi admits it was exhausting but helped him level up his ice and lightning magic, so it was well worth the effort. After all the equipment had been tested, the 3 of them headed to the guild since Takumi needed to register Maria and Sophia at the guild so they could also register as adventurers. Since this is their first time at the guild, Maria and Sophia are given the H rank. While Takumi is here, the receptionist reminds him that he needs to complete at least one quest to maintain his status as an adventurer. So Takumi heads over the notice board to see if there are any good quests he can pick out. Takumi hopes to pick an H or G rank quest, so he doesn't have to do too much work, but Sophia thinks Takumi would be better off choosing one of the higher difficulty quests since it would help him raise his rank. A couple of scums overhear that Takumi is H rank, so they think they can intimidate him into running away, so they can have fun with Sophia and Maria. They tell Takumi that they are all D rank, so there's no way he could handle them all at once, and they have no problem with beating up a random guy for fun. Maria is about to step in and knock some sense into these idiots, but Takumi stops her and says he will handle it himself. Takumi is terrified, but these guys disrespected him and more importantly disrespected his friends, so he can't back down. The D rank guys are offended that an H rank newbie like Takumi thinks he stands a chance against them. The guy with the fat belly tries to punch him with all his might and Takumi just lets it happen. But the only one who gets hurt is the D rank guy because he broke his hand with that little stunt. Suddenly the guild master Barak shows up, demanding to know what happened here because fighting is prohibited in the guild. At first Barak thinks Takumi is to blame for all the commotion since he is completely unharmed and the other guy has a broken arm, but Maria tells him Takumi did nothing wrong. The receptionist also backs up their story and explains to the guild master that all Takumi did was take a punch to the face. The guild master still wants to get to the bottom of this, so for now, Barak asks someone to drive the fat belly guy away and tells Takumi and his party to come with him since he has a few questions to ask. Barak believes that Takumi was just defending himself, but he doesn't understand how he did it and would like an explanation. Takumi is a little uncomfortable revealing personal skill information, but the guild master assures him that all his information will remain confidential. In that case, Takumi explains that when the guy threw the punch at him, he opened his item box and pulled out a bit of charcoal, which then Takumi used to coat his upper body for defense, and to make sure he wouldn't get hurt, Takumi synthesized the charcoal into a diamond. That explains how Takumi broke that guy's fist without doing anything. But while they are on the topic, the guild master thinks it would be a good idea to promote Takumi to D rank immediately. Takumi clearly has the skills to be D rank, and if his rank is high, idiots like the last guy won't be bold enough to go after him just because Takumi has pretty ladies with him. Takumi doesn't think it'd be right for him to get an automatic promotion for no reason, so Hans suggests that Takumi and the others could complete a few difficult quests to justify their rank promotion, and both Sophia and Maria seem to think it's a good idea, so Takumi agrees as well. The quest they were assigned involves exterminating goblins and kobolds and then gathering herbs, so they head out into the forest to begin. Maple acts as the group scout and warns them that a group of 4 goblins is up ahead. Sophia takes the initiative and volunteers to handle the first 2, so she dashes forward and cuts them down in one swing. Maple's web trips up the remaining 2, and once they fall to the floor, Maria and Takumi stab them through the neck. Takumi is glad they're doing so well against the monsters, but with that said, they've been encountering way too many monsters out here. They've already killed nearly 100 goblins and kobolds, so Sophia thinks there must be a monster encampment nearby. And if that is the case, then there is likely also a goblin general there. A goblin general is a C rank monster, meaning it would usually require at least 5 D rank parties to defeat it. Still, with Sophia's spirit magic, Maria's earth magic, and Takumi's elemental magic, she is confident that they should be able to beat it. Takumi still feels a bit uneasy about taking on such a challenge, but since Maria and Sophia seem so confident in their strength, Takumi is willing to go along. Not to mention they've still got Maple on their side, but all of a sudden, Maple tells Takumi she is about to evolve soon, so Maple can't fight anymore. Takumi understands and opens a pocket dimension so Maple can rest inside. But Sophia and Maria have many questions, like when did Takumi learn to create pocket dimensions? Takumi brushes it off like it's normal and says this is just one of his skills. But more importantly, since Maple can't fight with them anymore, Takumi warns the others that they won't have as much support as they initially thought, but Sophia still thinks they can pull it off. They soon arrive at the goblin camp, and after a little reconnaissance, Sophia concludes that there are around 400 goblins here. Takumi asks her if they really have to fight all those goblins, and normally they would, but Sophia's reconnaissance also reveals that there are no humans in the area, so they are free to blow this place up with magic. The 3 of them prepare their strongest attack spells, and all at the same time they unleash the spells on the goblin camp. By the time they are done, almost all the goblins have been killed, so the only ones left are the goblin general and a few of the goblin knights. Sophia says she will handle the goblin knights, so Takumi is left to deal with the goblin general, and rather than fight it with his spear, he sets it on fire to finish it. Once they finally confirm that all the goblins are dead, they gather all the magic stones and return to the guild. And the 3 of them are exhausted from all that work. Hans can hardly believe that they managed to complete their quest and even took down a goblin general in only half a day. So he asks them to come to the meeting room for a minute because the guild master wants to see them. Barak is both amazed and angry that Takumi would do something as reckless as face an entire goblin camp with a single party. But just as he is about to begin scolding Takumi, his pocket dimension opens up and Maple pops out. Now Maple has evolved into an Erichon, so everyone is excited to see her new form. And at this point Barak decides just to let the whole reckless battle thing slide since Takumi's party clearly isn't normal. Once they return home, Maria asks Takumi if he has any spare clothes since she wants to make underwear for herself and Sophia. However, Takumi has a much better idea for underwear design, so he offers to make it for her instead. Then Maple pops out of the pocket dimension and tells Takumi that Papek is here to see him. So Takumi meets with him and is informed that the Lord of Bolton, Marcus Godwin, wants to meet with him. Takumi would like to avoid meeting Marcus Godwin, but given the situation he has no choice. Takumi later arrives at Godwin's castle. Godwin seems reasonable since he first thanks Takumi for making all those toilets because it greatly improved the town's sanitation. Not to mention that Takumi took down a goblin camp that would have become a major problem if left unchecked. Godwin recognizes that Takumi is an asset to the nation, so he warns him that he must be careful, because Sidonia is bound to come after him eventually. A few days later, Takumi finishes making the underwear for Sophia and Maria. But it was way harder than Takumi thought, so he looked absolutely drained. Sophia and Maria are grateful, and tell him that they love the design, so Takumi absent-mindedly asks them if they would like to try the underwear on now so he can see how it fits. A second later Takumi realizes that he just implied something inappropriate, so Takumi runs out of the room in embarrassment and Maria and Sophia are a little disappointed because they were willing to do it if Takumi had stayed. After all that excitement, Takumi had to cool off, so he decided that his next project would be to create refrigerators. Once Takumi is done, he explains to the girls that the fridges will keep food cold so it doesn't spoil, and they're excited to feel the cold air coming from it. Takumi synthesized iron, chromium, and nickel into stainless steel to create the fridges and then added a magical device enchanted with cooling magic. Maria thanked Takumi for it since she could cook with fresh ingredients whenever possible. Takumi intends to give one of the fridges to Maria, and the other two will be sent to Papek so he can sell them. Once that is done, Takumi plans to move on to his next project. Sophia asks him if Takumi will make something new again, but Takumi is considering adjusting their equipment. There are a few things Takumi has wanted to tweak ever since their fight with all those goblins, and since they'll be traveling soon, he wants their gear to be as good as possible, so Takumi would like to make a set out of mithril and adamantite. Takumi heads to the guild to ask Hans if any blacksmiths around know how to work with adamantite and mithril, but the metals are rare, so there aren't many people who fit that description. If Hans had to guess, the only people who could handle it are the dwarves from Namstal. That's a long way away, so Takumi can't go there. Takumi accepts that he can't find a suitable blacksmith after all. Still, before Takumi leaves, Hans tells him about a city known as Horus near the kingdom of Barkula, and if he heads there, Takumi should be able to mine some mithril and adamantite. However, Takumi might have a little trouble getting in since only members of the blacksmith guild are allowed into the mines. Luckily, Hans knows of a great way around the rules. Let's say that Takumi just happened to accept a quest to exterminate the monsters that appear in that mine, and hypothetically happened to come across some mithril along the way. Nothing would stop him from mining the metals then. Suddenly the guild master appears out of nowhere, and says he has the perfect quest for Takumi. Barak explains that the guild has been running low on tree wood lately and winter is coming, so they need someone to gather some. The tree ants usually wander around the Horus mines, and since Takumi is looking for an excuse to go into the mines anyway, the guild master thinks he should be fine with collecting a little wood. Additionally, since Takumi is heading there anyway, the guild master wants him and his party to escort someone, but this is starting to sound like a lot of work. Takumi has never handled an escort mission before, so he asks why the members of Lion Fong can't do it instead. The guild master explains that Lion Fong is currently out on a separate mission, so they can't do it, and Takumi is the only other person he can ask. Takumi eventually agrees to take on the escort mission, but still doesn't know much about the route to Horus, so Takumi asks Hans how long it takes to get there. Hans tells him it takes 7 days if you go by horse-drawn carriage, but it'll only take 4 days if you use a monster horse instead, since they're twice as fast as regular horses. Takumi thinks the monster horse is a great idea, so he asks if he can take one of those, but unfortunately, Riel shows up to tell him that Lion Fong is already using all the monster horses. Hans is surprised to see Riel back so soon, but Riel says he and his party aren't done with their quest yet. Riel killed a black buffalo along the way and returned to drop it off before it went rot. Riel has to head back out in the morning to catch up with the rest of Lion's Fong. Since Riel will be staying in town for the night, Takumi offers to let him stay at his house and have a bath. Riel is excited by the prospect of a bath, so he takes Takumi up on that offer. Takumi is glad to hear it, but he actually has somewhere to go after this, so Takumi says Riel can just wait for him at his house, but Riel says he would rather accompany Takumi. In that case, Takumi lets Riel accompany him to Papek's company, and while Takumi is there he manages to convince Papek to let him borrow a couple of his monster horses for his mission. But in return, Papek asks that Takumi sell him some of the ores he gets from the Hora's mine. Also about the refrigerator Takumi brought earlier, Papek really likes it, so he asks Takumi to make some more for him once he gets back from his mining trip. Meanwhile, back at Takumi's mansion, Sophia is starting to get really worried that something might have happened to him since Takumi hasn't returned yet. Later that evening, Takumi is walking back home with Riel and he apologizes for dragging Riel on such a long errand even though he must be tired from his journey. But Riel doesn't mind since he is the one who said he'd accompany Takumi. Just then Riel senses someone watching him and Takumi with great hostility. Riel can already tell that he can't beat this person with the equipment Riel has on hand, so he grabs Takumi's hand and starts running. However, the assailant swiftly catches up to them and kicks Riel across the face. Then she reveals herself to be Sophia, and she is convinced that Riel must have been trying to kidnap Takumi, so Sophia is prepared to cut him down without question. However, before Sophia could kill Riel, Takumi jumps in front of him and tells Sophia she has the wrong idea about the whole situation. After explaining what's going on, Sophia sincerely apologizes to Riel for nearly killing for no reason. Riel is alright, so he forgives Sophia, but Riel has a lot of questions he wants to ask Takumi after this. The list of questions only gets longer when they finally get to Takumi's house and Riel finds more cute girls there. Riel asks Takumi what's going on, so Takumi explains that he needs a maid to take care of the house and someone to guard him, so Takumi hires Sophia and Maria. Then there is Maple, who happened to evolve at one point. Riel is excited to see Maple again in her new form and Maple remembers him, but she still doesn't like Riel though. Riel falls to his knees in defeat because Boger and Heath already have wives and even Takumi has 2 girlfriends while he is single. Takumi corrects Riel and tells him he isn't dating either Sophia or Maria. After hearing this, Riel takes the opportunity to try his shot and asks Sophia if she considered going out with him, but Sophia immediately turns him down, and so does Maria, so Riel is once again left defeated. A little while later, as Riel is crying in the bath, Takumi talks to Maria and Sophia about his accepted mission so Takumi can go mine some mithril and adamantite. Sophia thinks it's a good idea since Triantwood is a precious material and everyone else is on board, so Takumi says they will head out in 3 days. The next morning, Riel leaves to rejoin the rest of Lion's Fong, and once he is gone, Takumi begins working on some new equipment for his party's Triant hunt. Takumi gets himself a magic draining tungsten carbide sword, and it is already a great weapon, but it's too big to use as it is now, which is why Takumi plans to break it down. Takumi tries using his alchemy skill on it, but the sword seems to resist him, so it takes much more effort than usual. But eventually, Takumi can break the metal down and make 2 separate blades. The blades drain the mana of any opponent who is cut with it, so Takumi is happy with the results, although it left him totally drained. 3 days later, Takumi and the others meet with Papek to collect the carriage he promised to give them, and the guy the guild master asked them to escort is already waiting inside. So Takumi goes to talk to him, and the man introduces himself as Gambo. The group sets out, but must stop by a field so Takumi and the others can hunt their Triants. As they enter the forest, Sophia spots a Triant trying to blend in with the other trees nearby, so she points it out to Takumi, and he charges forward to eliminate it. The Triant tries to attack Takumi, but Sophia and Maria have his back, so he can easily chop it down. However, that was just one Triant, so they still got an entire forest's worth to take down. It'll take too long to kill each Triant individually, so Sophia suggests that they should use magic, and it seems to be working really well. However, an Elder Triant soon confronts them, and no matter how much magic they use to attack it, it regenerates. The only way to finish it is to cut down its main body in one go, so Sophia tells Takumi to coat his sword with fire and attack while she and Maria provide cover. Together they can finally take down the leader Triant, and that's it for their Triant hunting, so they can continue their journey to Horace. Upon arriving at Horace, they head to the local adventurers guild, and their Gambo points out a quest that says it needs people to exterminate the mole monsters in the mines. These moles eat ores, so they are considered a serious threat, and if they take this mission, they will be allowed to enter the mines. A little while later the group is mining in the mines and they get fortunate because it doesn't take long for them to find some mithril and adamantite ore. However, the ores attract some monster moles from the ground, so they have the area to fight. Before the mole surfaces, Takumi thinks about it for a second and comes up with a great idea, so as soon as the mole shows itself, he blinds it with light magic and it collapses, so it is easily finished off. Takumi's method makes it easy to take out the moles, but Sophia and Maria are a little disappointed since that means they won't fight. Since the mining trip was successful, they all return to Bolton a few days later, and once they do, Takumi visits Kiambo's shop to learn how to work with mithril and adamantite. Kiambo explains the process of extracting the metal from the ore, and after a lot of effort, Takumi can create some mithril and adamantite, so he starts using it to make all kinds of magic-imbued gear. Once Takumi is done with the new gear, he gives it to Maria and Sophia so they can test it out. The girls are amazed by how light and durable their armor is now, and it even has magic imbued in it. Takumi explains that he loaded their gear with magic that suits their preferred element. As for his armor, Takumi imbued it with something called Thunderclap, which is basically an extreme agility buff, so he can move insanely fast with it. However, the second Takumi tries to do something cool by showing off how fast he is, the universe refuses to let it happen, and Takumi ends up crashing face first into a wall. Moving on, Takumi shows them the new weapons he made, and the enchantments Takumi placed in them. Sophia and Maria both love the new spears, but Sophia has a request. She would like to make. Sophia would gladly lay down her life to protect Takumi, so she asks if he can make a shield for her so Sophia can protect him more efficiently. Takumi thinks that's a good idea, but he reminds Sophia that she should value her own life just as much as Sophia values his life. Norn has been watching Takumi all this time and is happy with all his progress because Takumi will certainly need all the strength he can get to face his upcoming battles. 1 year in the future, when the other heroes are summoned, we see Akira and Yamato. After their training is complete, they are sent on a mission to the kingdom of Samander. Back to Takumi's side, he has just finished working on Sophia's request for the shield. Although Sophia is the one who requested it, she feels bad after seeing how much it drains Takumi, so Sophia wishes he had an assistant who could help him with his production. Meanwhile, over in the royal capital, the Lord receives a letter from Sidonia. It seems that they have heard about Takumi's toilets and the purification magic used in them, and although they don't know who Takumi is yet, they plan to take action against him. The action involves the church sending a messenger to meet with the king of Barkula. After learning about the purification magic toilets used in Barkula, the Church of Divine Light appealed to the Pope in Sidonia. As a result, they got the Pope to declare that purification magic is a gift from their god, and they wanted to be the only ones who could use it, so they demanded that the king of Barkula hand over the patent for the purification magic circles. Additionally, they demand that the king tell them who was behind the creation of these purification devices in the first place. The king listens to the church's demands, but chooses to ignore them because of those stupid demands. The church's messenger is shocked that the king would dare to go against the church, so he threatens to order all the church priests in Barkula to return to Sidonia at once. However, the king isn't scared of that threat and encourages him to do so. Takumi eventually hears about the king's decision and is glad the king didn't sell him out, but Takumi is also a little worried about the king rejecting the Church of Divine Light so harshly. Sidonia's church is bound to turn against the kingdom of Barkula, and Takumi would hate it if such a big conflict were to start because of him, but Papek tells him there's nothing to worry about. After all, the Church of Divine Light isn't the only religion in this world. There is the Church of Divine Light, and then there is the Church of Creation, but even though the Church of Divine Light's influence is far spread, there are still a lot of followers of the Church of Creation in this country, so the Church of Divine Light won't be missed. On top of that, the priests of the Church of Creation administer recovery magic to anyone in need, but the Church of Divine Light charges hefty fees for any holy magic. Sidonia backs the Church of Divine Light, so Takumi will probably have to avoid them from now on. But it is what it is. Papek came to see Takumi today because he presented Takumi's toilet and refrigerator to the king a while ago. And the king was so impressed that he asked Papek to bring Takumi to meet him. Takumi is a little wary of meeting someone as important as the king, but Papek assures him that the king isn't ordering him to do it, so he has the right to refuse if Takumi wants. But Papek really wants him to agree since it would help his company's relationship with the royal capital. Takumi eventually agrees to the meeting, so later that evening he tells Sophia and Maria about it and asks them if they would be willing to accompany him to the royal capital Bakalados. Both say they would love to go with Takumi, so he suggests departing a week from now. But in the meantime, there's a lot of stuff they must prepare. A trip to the royal capital will take about 7 days, so Maria must pack a lot of food in advance. While Maria does that, Takumi says he will work on new cloaks for Maria and Sophia. Takumi got some dark element magic stones from Papek, and if he uses those to make the cloaks, then Takumi can enchant them with a perception blocking spell. A spell like that would be useful in combat. But the main reason Takumi wants to make it is so that when they make it to the royal capital, Sophia and Maria won't get harassed. Later on, Sophia and Maria head out to shop. And while picking out some fruit, Maria complains that Takumi lacks confidence in himself. Sophia agrees and points out that Takumi has good looks, an amazing talent for alchemy, and incredible invention knowledge. Sophia continues listing off all of Takumi's good qualities, but Maria notices how enthusiastic Sophia is when she talks about Takumi, so she feels that Sophia might be in love with him. Sophia denies having such impure thoughts and says she only loves Takumi as her master, but Maria knows there is a love story somewhere. Meanwhile, Takumi is back at the church and kneels in front of the statue of Norn to pray to her. Before long, light shines down on Takumi, and he finds himself up in Norn's domain, where she warmly greets him. It's been a while since Norn last saw Takumi, and she heard about his invitation to the royal capital, so if Takumi is here to pray for safe travels, he should have offered her an offering. Takumi tells her that he is just here because Takumi has a few questions he wants to ask her. Anat is the goddess that the Church of Divine Light worships, so first Takumi asks Norn if another goddess is beside her. Norn asserts that she is the only real goddess here, but if that's the case, Takumi asks what Anat is meant to be. Norn doesn't want to reveal too much, so she says Takumi will find out about that when the time comes. While Takumi is here, he also asks Norn if she knows what's become of the other heroes that were summoned with him. It has been 10 months since Takumi got here, and normally something like heroes being summoned from another world would cause a huge commotion, but Takumi hasn't heard anyone talk about it. Norn comes clean and admits that when she summoned Takumi, Norn messed up the time a little to send him 1 year into the past, so the heroes technically haven't been summoned yet. It'll be another couple of months before the heroes get summoned, but Takumi doesn't understand why Norn would go through all the trouble of sending him back in time, so he asks for an explanation. Unfortunately, Norn says his time's up, so she won't be answering any more questions for now, and Norn also asks him to bring her sweets as an offering next time Takumi visits her. Takumi tries to tell her he has more questions to ask, but Norn hits him on the head, knocking him back down to the mortal world. Takumi later wakes up on the church floor, and he feels that Norn was avoiding his questions about the other heroes. But Takumi has no intention of getting involved with them in the first place, so it doesn't matter. Then Takumi heads back home to finish up those new cloaks he wanted to make for the girls, and once Takumi is done, he gives it to them. Maria and Sophia love the designs, and Takumi is glad to hear them, but there is something else Takumi wants to work on before their trip. Takumi leads them to his workshop and shows them he plans to make a carriage for himself. Since they have been traveling a lot recently, Takumi feels it would be more efficient to make a comfortable carriage for them to use rather than having to borrow one every time. However, even if Takumi can make his carriage, he still doesn't have a horse, so Takumi will need to borrow one from the guild. Maria says there's no need for that since they can get one of those too. The Forest of Death outside Bolton has a ton of monsters in it. If they search long enough, they probably find a unicorn or drake horse, which would be way faster than a regular monster horse. Maria seemed excited about catching a horse, but Takumi couldn't help but feel a little nervous. They eventually head out in search of a horse, and while on their way into the forest, Takumi asks Sophia if Drake's horses are significantly faster than the monster horses they get from the guild. Sophia confirms this and tells him that a Drake horse possesses speed, stamina, and durability far exceeding that of a regular monster horse. The Drake horses look pretty much the same as regular horses, but they have a huge horn and dragon scales along their body, so it should be pretty easy to spot if they come across one. Then Maple calls out to the three of them and says they should hurry up to find the horse already. Maple is clearly very motivated. That is because Maple is excited to get a new friend once Takumi forms a familiar contract with the horse. However, before the others can catch up to Maple, Sophia senses a monster nearby, so she readies her sword. But as a wolf jumps out of the bushes, it just runs past them instead of attacking. Takumi proudly states that the wolf didn't see them because of their anti-perception cloaks, but while Sophia is certainly impressed by the effectiveness of the cloaks, she thinks it might be a good idea to take them off so they can actually fight some monsters. A few moments after removing the cloak, Sophia slays a boar in a single blow. Maria thinks this is great since she can prepare the boar meat for them to use on their trip. Maple is getting impatient and tells everyone to hurry up already, but then Takumi notices a dead tree ant on the ground. He could really use the wood since Takumi is making a carriage, so he and Sophia get ready to begin cutting it up. Now Maria is busy with the meat and Takumi is busy with the trees, so Maple gives up on waiting for them and decides to go ahead by herself to find a horse. While making her way through the forest, Maple notices a ton of dead tree ants in the area, so she wonders what could have done something like this. As Maple heads further into the forest, she eventually comes across a drake laying on the ground, and it looks like it's in rough shape. Maple approaches it and asks if it is wounded. The drake immediately fires a lightning strike at Maple, so she backs away from it, but Maple can tell that it's just scared because it's injured, and she understands the feeling since that was the same way Maple felt before Takumi found her. Maple tells Drake that he doesn't need to worry since her master is a really nice person, so he will heal it once he gets here. All they have to do is wait for a while. But doesn't look like they'll be able to wait in peace because two ant monsters suddenly show up and they don't look friendly. Maple realizes that the ants are the ones who hurt the drakes, so she uses her webs to capture them and throws their bodies in front of the drake to be electrocuted. But there are a lot more ants, so they might be in trouble here. To protect herself and the drake, Maple makes a barrier out of her silk. But while it may have bought her some time, the ants will eventually tear their way through. Maple tries calling for help from Takumi, but when Maple tries to establish a connection with him, Takumi doesn't respond at all. Maple starts worrying that Takumi may have gotten so excited about the wood he found that he forgot about her. Hopelessness sets in as the ants finally tear through her barrier, so Maple closes her eyes and awaits death. However, when Maple opens her eyes again, she finds Takumi standing over her, and he is so glad that Maple is alright. Maple jumps into his arms out of relief, and Takumi actually comes to save her because she was so worried when he didn't respond to her call. Takumi explained that the cause was likely the barrier Maple put up, which was well made for blocking out attacks, but the layers also blocked out all Mana's signals so her call couldn't reach him. But as soon as Takumi realizes he has lost Maple's signal, Takumi comes running to her last known location. Then Takumi notices the drake behind Maple, and Maple asks him to save it, so he extends his hand and tries to use healing magic on it. However, Drake repels him since he doesn't trust Takumi. Sophia tells Takumi they need to leave soon since there may be more ants in the area. But if they leave the drake out here on its own, it is bound to die, so Takumi decides to put it in his pocket dimension with Maple until they get home. Sophia warns him that Takumi can't put such a high-level beast in his pocket dimension without forming a contract first, because it will put tremendous strain on his body, but Takumi thinks he will be fine. As it turns out, Takumi was not fine. Takumi passed out almost immediately after putting the drake in his pocket dimension, and even after the girls brought him home, he still hasn't woken up for the past 12 hours. The fact that the drake is still in his pocket dimension means Takumi's mana will continue to be drained until he eventually withers away. Also, Takumi can't open the barrier to let the drake out because he is unconscious, so Sophia gets in touch with Maple and asks her to open the pocket dimension from inside. Maple says she can do that, but the drake will be frightened if it suddenly appears in unfamiliar territory, so Maple says she'll make a tent out in the front yard to keep it calm. Once the drake is out of the pocket dimension, Takumi should be able to recover, so in the meantime, Maria heads out to buy some medical supplies to treat him and asks Sophia to stay by Takumi's side so he has someone next to him when Takumi wakes up. Later that night, Takumi finally wakes up from his coma and heads outside to see the drake. Maple has been telling Drake all about Takumi while they waited for him to recover, and after introducing himself, Takumi asked if he would be willing to form a contract with him. The drake trusts Maple, and since she is vouching for Takumi, it agrees to the contract. Now that Takumi has tamed the drake, he can finally use magic on it without worrying about backlash. Takumi immediately casts High Heal on the drake to heal all its wounds. The next moment, the drake can stand on its own again and return to full strength. Now that Drake is officially one of Takumi's familiars, he has to devise a name for it. Since Takumi names Maple after a leaf, he decides to keep the theme and names the drake Camellia after the tree that retains its leaves all year round. Maple is glad that Camellia is all better now, and since everything has been settled, Maria calls everyone inside for dinner, because she made a lot of tasty food and Takumi hasn't eaten in a full day because he was unconscious. So now what will happen next? Subscribe to our channel to find out what will happen next. Friends, before we wrap up, we've recently launched a membership program where you can enjoy perks like early access to videos and exclusive content just for members and many more to enhance your interactions. If you're interested, consider joining our membership. To enjoy these benefits, check out the link in the description to join. So friends, if you enjoyed our recap video, please like and share it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.